Hola, hola, buenos dias, buenos tardes, or buenas noches, depending on when you are tuning into this familia. You are locked into Tech and Tequila, although today's episode is called Tech and Tasting, so that gives you a little bit of, today's episode is going to be a little different, but not crazy. And if you're new here, welcome, welcome, or as I like to say, bienvenidos. This is the podcast where technology meets community, innovation, and of course, real talk. And every conversation is paired with a good sip and a whole lot of positive vibes and of course, some truth about technology. I'm your host, Kat Lopez-Shelby, your Techie Chica, your digital bestie, and of course, your trusted tech advisor. And today's episode is super special because we are headed into the holidays and we are blending tech, entrepreneur energy, and mindful sipping. And of course, we are talking to the absolutely amazing Darcy from Epic.io about everything IoT and connectivity. So in case you're like, IoT what? Internet of Things, edge computing, unbreakable connectivity. Of course, we wouldn't have it without a little predictive intelligence. And we're going to finish it out with something that I hear about out in West Texas constantly, and that is Starlink. Because if data is the new oil, then guess what? Connectivity is your pipeline. And to walk us through all that, of course, we have Senora Darcy here from Epic.io. But before we get into the meat and papas of this episode, we're doing something a little different. And this is for my sober curious people who have chosen to be sober, or I've got a 6 a.m. flight tomorrow listeners. And that is, we are featuring the Can You Forex holiday pack. So first off, you're going to show up with this bad boy at your El Dia de los Gracias celebration. And people are going to be like, what? But not only is it cute, I can make the snow shake over here and great. This is the perfect blend for you guys to check. It's sin alcohol and it's a total vibe. So if you have ever been sober curious, yes, I know I love my tequila, but every now and then, we like to say it's 5 o'clock somewhere, but we got to start the day tomorrow early. This is going to give you clarity, help rest your nervous system. And of course, you're going to wake up feeling fabulous the next day. So if you haven't ever heard of Can You Forex, you can pick them up at several different locations. Go online, look them up. But Can You Forex is all about nootropics. And it's great for people, like I keep saying, they're sober curious. So what is Can You Forex? They offer a whole line of non-alcoholic functional beverages. They have adaptogens, nootropics, botanicals. They're all designed to uplift and calm and help you stay connected without alcohol. Now, for anyone who hasn't tried these before, I highly recommend grabbing this bundle. And the reason that I say that is you kind of get, I like to say, the best of all worlds. So for example, you're going to get actual sunshine, which is great as like a pick-me-up in the morning. You're going to get Ken Bloom, which is great for like unwinding, or maybe you just need a little after dinner, a little pick-me-up in the afternoon. You get, of course, Luna Morado, one of my favorites. And this is like metabolic fire in case you've never had it. And last but not least, if you want to unwind at the end of the evening, I highly recommend Lightwave. Obviously, your Techie Chica has tried them all. I love them. I love this right here because it comes with a glass as well. So you get, a little something for it. It's gorgeous. But this is going to cover everything. So if you are thinking, well, what does this taste like? So depending on which one you choose, you're going to get something that's going to be herbaceous, sparkling. This is very adult tasting. This is not like some like spritz juice that you're not going to enjoy. It's very sophisticated. And one of the best things is, as I said, with Lightwave, it's great to start the day out. This one right here is going to give you like clarity without giving you the jitters from a lot of caffeine. So great thing to try. So of course, this bundle is what I'm recommending today for your El Dia de los Gracias celebration, because this allows you to be fully present. You can wake up if you're one of those people that does turkey trots. I am not, but hey, you will be ready to turkey trot the next day. And so first off, go pick this up. And I would love to see your pictures. So obviously snap a photo with your laptop, with your view of your Ken that you're trying. Tell me what you think. Tag at Shelby Technology Solutions. And of course, we will highlight some of these on our socials. Now, let's get into it with everything from Senora Darcy with Epic.io. All right, Darcy, now that our listeners have their Ken, their cafecito, or their favorite bedita, let's talk about how you can help keep them connected and protected no matter where they are. So for anyone, of course, I know you, but that doesn't know yourself or doesn't know Epic.io, can you just give me kind of like a little intro? I would like to say this would be our speed dating section of the episode where you say, hey, I'm Darcy, and this is what Epic.io does.
Yeah. Well, what I do, so I'm Darcy Guidry, born and raised in Arlington, Texas. I've been in telecom for over 15 years, and I actually was on the advisor side for a very long time. And then I am now at Epic.io as a regional channel director for the Central region. So my job is to educate and enable and support advisors like Kat and her team in bringing connectivity to her customers where Epic.io is a good fit. So Epic.io is a culmination of a couple of companies. So previously under the name Broad Sky Networks, we were wireless all the way for over 20 years. And then they were acquired by a private equity firm that also acquired an AIoT company, or an AI company that works in the physical security space with cameras and sensors, etc. And the reason why they brought the two together is because every IoT device, or any device really that sends data across the network, needs connectivity at the edge. And Broad Sky, being a company that could provide the wireless SIM cards and the connectivity in that space in a quick and nimble way, separate from a wireline network or their primary WAN network, so that it's secure and separate. That's why they brought the two together, because it just made sense for the business. We've been in channel for over 25 years. We call ourselves the wireless experts because we really are. We don't dabble in coax or fiber, but we did launch our Starlink solution about 2 years ago. So now we're Starlink experts on top of being a wireless aggregator for all the major carriers. We manage routers. We can provide SIM only. We also offer POTS replacement over wireless for essential emergency type of lines. And so that's the core of our offering in this space.
Thank you, Darcy. Actually, that definitely gives our listeners a lot to think about everything that Epic.io can do. I especially like where you talked about the reason for combining the companies, and of course, with a little tell-in bit about Starlink and the importance that brings to the table. But let's talk about Epic.io, and one of the things behind it is that you guys want to make sure that with wireless connectivity, or with IoT, so to speak, that you have a safer and smarter environment. So can you share like one thing where Epic really changed the game for a business or a community where you thought, yep, that's exactly what we do, and this is a great example of it?
So we have a couple of customers that are smart cities. We were brought in initially to assess their camera systems and set up the AI layer to detect and alert and allow for proactive monitoring and things along those lines. We have a SOC here in the Dallas area. The other piece was, once we got in there, the traffic department realized quickly that the traffic department had their struggles and their issues with the connectivity at each intersection and dropping of signal, and or maybe when a fiber is cut down the road due to construction, their wireless failover solution was not ample enough. So we were able to then come in assess and replace all of their current wireless failover at every intersection using the FirstNet Frontline NT priority connections we have, which is a true unlimited prioritized traffic for first responders. And that's not something that every vendor out there has in their tool belt. So that's one where we really came in and came to the rescue per se for that city. Now we cover a whole county in that area for the smart city, et cetera, where we can help alleviate any issues, whether it's an accident in the intersection, pedestrian being hit and runs, things like that, but also major crimes where we have to get involved and or call the authorities on their behalf. So that's a big part of the AIoT side of the business. But ultimately, it's the connection that brings it to the cloud, right? That wireless connection over being able to transmit that signal from the endpoint.
I really like that because that definitely shows kind of, I would say, the full spectrum of what you guys can do with the smart city and with AIoT. And I mean, I don't know about everyone listening, but I definitely can think of a couple of cities that could probably use some of that for sure, because Lord knows, I mean, if you were driving in Texas, please, we don't have to get started with everything going on. Now, not to switch lanes too much, but you talked about edge computing, and I know that you guys have end-to-end management systems and custom solutions. So for when Epic IO says edge intelligence, what does that mean? And how do you guys stay flexible and customize, also secure, because we cannot miss that?
So that is basically our AI tool that layers over the top of any sensor. So a camera is just another dummy sensor. The AI layer is that detection, that real time proactive approach. So most customers, if you find that they have existing cameras that are a little bit older, it's purely reactive. It's going to be, hey, we had an incident last night. Let's go back and pull the camera footage and then see if anything can come of it. In this case, it would detect it live while it's happening and be able to send alerts either live to the customer or to the authorities on their behalf, depending on which layer or which level of support they have contracted with us. But then it allows you to get ahead of the incident, whether you're catching them live while it's happening or deterring them with like a talk down service. Hey, mister, you're in a restricted area after hours. The police and authorities will be notified if you don't leave immediately, that kind of thing. So that's where that edge computing and edge AI really comes into play. And that's where our specialty in that space is. It can be, well, there's multiple avenues for that, whether it's a camera or sensor that's wired to power or solar powered or on a mobile surveillance unit. We do all of the above. And we're pretty agnostic when it comes to the cameras. So if they have existing cameras in place, we can utilize them as long as they're compliant and that they have a high enough resolution that feeds our AI platform properly. If they're super old and they don't have good quality of feed, then we may have to rip and replace. And oftentimes we're brought in when it's a new build. So then they're all new cameras anyway. So that's that. I tend to ramble.
No. I mean, I always like to say people that talk tech, we can talk forever about this stuff and we can get into the weeds. But obviously I would be remiss if I didn't talk about kind of like, I don't want to take it back in time, but where you guys started. And one of the things that when you're talking about wireless and kind of how it began, let's say, one thing that really stood out to me when I was looking a little more in depth into this is you guys' cross-carrier data pooling, your device agnostic, interpolability. And I know that sounds, those are, I don't want to say they're big words, but every time I say I'm carrier agnostic, people are like, what does that mean? So what does that mean for your clients and why would that matter to them anyways?
So first, I want to talk about the evolution of wireless. And this is something that we like to highlight too when there's a lot of skeptics out there. They're like, wireless, right? Like it doesn't really work. I just had that conversation this morning with another advisor, and it was basically like, does it really work? Because I've tried it in the past and it wasn't great. And that's because in the past, it wasn't great. Over the last 25 years, it's evolved. We actually started in that 3G, then 4G, now 5G plus space. And the evolution of wireless also includes the hardware at the edge, those devices that the SIM cards go into. Not only the SIM cards themselves have evolved and the service has evolved because of now the 5G towers being built in more frequency and in areas where it wasn't available before, as these carriers are broadening their network and their coverage. But the SIM technology has changed, and the routers and the devices that they go into, whether it's, like I said, a router or a tablet or an IoT device, or I don't know, an autonomous vehicle. Like there's a lot of use cases for that. So it works. It's leaps and bounds better than it was 10 years ago, even whenever I first started selling wireless. And now Epic, or at least as far as I remember back, Epic has always done a dual SIM solution. So if we are asked to, whether it's bringing in a temporary primary connection or just a failover connection, or even our POTS replacement, we're going to check for best carrier coverage based on the address with the live crowdsourcing data tool that tells us exactly how that carrier is performing at any given time. So we can truly choose best carrier based on performance and not on preference. So if in my area, I'm near a 5G tower and it's T-Mobile. So T-Mobile is in slot 1 in the router, and then say Verizon is the next best carrier in my area, then Verizon would be in slot 2 as a dormant SIM, but built-in redundancy should T-Mobile have an outage. And let's face it, all the carriers have outages from time to time. It happened to me about a year ago, and I just ran on the Verizon network until T-Mobile was back up. The speeds are extremely higher and the throughput is much better. Jitter, it has improved exponentially over time as well as wireless has evolved, especially now with 5G and the growth in that space. So customers are seeing that wireless as primary actually can work long-term for them. We do it a lot for temporary workspaces or job sites, things like that, or even as a permanent solution in areas where they're never going to pay to have that fiber built out. And then we talk about like, if wireless isn't as strong, that's where we bring in Starlink. It's usually a supplement in areas where you can't get anything else. And it's that low Earth orbit mesh network. And that's improving week over week, month over month, right? Even just since we've been in this space, we've seen it improve so much. And the jitter's gotten better. The latency's gotten better. The throughput is better. The bandwidth speeds that people are seeing is better. It's always going to be asymmetrical, and it's never going to be a stagnant bandwidth like a DIA, but it is going to outperform some of those other suppliers that maybe don't do best carrier selection and don't have a dual SIM solution and don't put as much thought and effort into which appliances they're going to put their solution into like we do. That's what makes us the gold standard.
You know, that leads in to kind of what I was going to talk about next, because obviously we talk about there's going to be areas where at this time, or maybe it's going to take years to bring fiber out, because back in the day, which I won't tell you because I've been in tech since dinosaurs roamed the earth, but we used to have a statement: if your nearest neighbor is a cow, your cell is probably not going to work for you. Okay. Mm-hmm. And for those who don't know, I'm born and raised in Texas pretty much the whole time. So but you know, with what Epic IO is doing, you really have helped to build out some of those rural areas, or when people are working, you know, out in the field, and that helps to build like resiliency. So if, let's say, someone gets on site and their Wi-Fi wakes up and says, not today, really, how does Epic kind of fill that to keep all their systems up? And how do you guys design redundancy to make sure that it really, like, it's resilient and stays up?
So if they wake up and their service is down and they have our wireless failover in place, then it would have been an automatic failover. So the way you connect the device to your network, our appliance then is able to automatically trigger that failover, and then they would ride on the wireless network. If that carrier has an issue, that's where the dual carrier SIM comes into play. So then it would roll to the second SIM and we would activate that second usage plan. In the event that both carriers are down, which is like never, then we would have to figure out an alternative, whether it's drop shipping a third SIM card overnighted for emergencies, or deploying out, like I said, Starlink where it makes sense.
Well, I mean, I know you've covered that, and we've covered Starlink, and we've covered rural areas, but you all are really bringing like connectivity to the forefront. And I always like to tell people, like, sometimes when we talk about connectivity, people don't think that per se that's not as exciting in tech. But let me tell you, nobody frustrates, screams, gets angry as much as when your internet and things are not working. Like, we all universally have gotten those calls, I'm sure. So for people like entrepreneurs, remote workers, digital nomads, or just like small business, what do you think are some realistic and accessible ways that they can work with Epic.io, or that you guys have solutions for them? And where do you think that they should begin?
Well, so you have your fixed location. If it's a brick and mortar, then we know we can do that best carrier selection process, have a fixed router in a certain location. But if you're a digital nomad and you're on the go, we have multi-carrier SIMs and hotspots. We do that all day, every day. That's one of our specialties as well. There are kits that we can assemble in special cases where it's like a pop-up show or an entertainment live pop-up as well. And it's like a combination of a router and a solar panel or battery backups, things like that, with a multi-SIM in it as well, where it can pick up any carrier's signal, no matter where you are. So that's gonna be a good solution for that as well. There's a new one that we're beta testing right now. That's the Antenna Pro Max, and it's basically a small Starlink dish as well as a wireless router combined together in a kit that can mount on the top of even a vehicle or a mobile trailer or anything like those. That's going to be a game changer for a lot of these businesses that are on the move, such as like news vans, reporters, emergency response teams, concerts that are moving around. There's a lot of use cases for that as well. We've gotten a lot of that inquiry, and how can we make ourselves or give ourselves connectivity when nobody else can during a hurricane per se. Last year shined an even bigger light on some areas that are prone to extreme weather, and they weren't prepared at all for the possibility. And so this year we got ahead of it and started promoting an emphasis on disaster preparedness, where, hey, maybe we should have this kit ready to deploy out before the disaster strikes, so that you can pop up a power supply and an antenna on the roof of your car even, and be able to get connectivity during post-disaster, basically, while the carriers in the ground are repairing their lines due to the damage. People need connectivity no matter where you are these days. People need connectivity. Even when I stay at like Airbnbs and I travel, and it's amazing to me how many of them have poor connections, and I have to bring my own hotspot in order to stay connected in case something happens at home or at work and I need to jump online. I mean, not everybody has that lifeline or that in their back pocket, but Epic.io is here to help them solve for that. And these companies with employees that are on the go, that's especially important.
No, and I think you really hit on that, because we live in this world where almost anybody can work from anywhere, right? I mean, if we really take it back, like we really have the capabilities. We figured that out during, 2020, but it's, as you travel, sometimes we take for granted, like the Airbnb's Wi-Fi is going to work great, or we're going to be in an area where it works, and you're like down in a low valley and it's not working for you. So Epic IO definitely has some great answers for that. Now, let's say that the digital nomad, the small business owner, the client says, all right, we want to go with Epic IO. Can you walk us kind of step by step through what it looks like when Epic IO brings on a new client, so that per se they're not overwhelmed, or they don't really, know where to start, or what kind of questions would be asked?
So first off, I always ask for the address, because we're going to qualify that location based on where they're at and who's performing or not. And then we build a solution around the use case. A lot of people ask, well, what's your price? Well, it depends on the use case. I'm always going to ask questions. How many people are going to be using it? What do you have, heavy upload or download? Is it strictly for failover, or is it for primary until your primary gets installed, and then we roll it back to like a failover scenario at that point? Is it going to be just for point of sales or IoT devices? Are you running it just for your cameras, or for a well in the middle of West Texas or something? We do that a lot too. We're always going to ask the use case, because we want to make sure that we're engineering the outcome based on the customer's need, and it's not cookie cutter. Not every customer is the same. So first I'm going to ask for the address, and then I'm going to qualify it. And then we're going to build a solution around what their needs are and what their problems are. And then we're going to provide a proposal with additional required paperwork. And if need be, we'll get an engineer on the phone with them and talk them through any of their other questions. Hey, do you need a static IP? Do you need active, or just active passive is fine for the SIMs? There's a lot of different configurations available, a lot more than people would think when they think wireless. So it's important to go to a wireless expert to ensure that they're going to get a true solution based on what they need, instead of just what the supplier or the carrier thinks they need. If you're going direct to a T-Mobile or an AT&T or a Verizon even, they're only going to have their own network to offer. If you go through an aggregator like us, we become the ISP. You get a single bill. We can cross-carrier pool it, which when I say pooling the data, means all the data plans for all your locations go into one bucket. It doesn't matter which carriers are at the edge. We become the ISP at that point, and we're going to manage that pool of data for you. And then we have a central management platform too, that manages all the connections, so you can see who's using what at any given time. And if someone's having an outage, you can go in and see that there's a spike in usage. That system also is set up for proactive alerting, which is another layer of AI where we have that capability, is to detect anomalies and send alerts, or our team has the flexibility, like, hey, Mr. Customer, you're trending towards an overage, give us a call. And then we may be able to temporarily upgrade you for that month because you're having an outage, and we'd rather you not have a bunch of overage costs involved if we can avoid it. So we have that flexibility too. Once we have clean paperwork, I think I should probably expound on that a little bit too. So once we have clean paperwork, then the order is processed and assigned to an order specialist, usually within the same day or within 24 hours. Hey, Mr. Customer, thank you for choosing Epic IO. We're going to be with you shortly with your tracking information for your hardware. And then if a pro install has been contracted as well with our professional installers team, then it will be handed to a project manager, and that project manager is going to handhold that until it's complete and tested clean.
No, and I love that, because you use my favorite term, which is hand-holding with clients, because we know that anytime someone is changing from technology A to technology B, they tend to get a little nervous about it. Mm-hmm. This is the joys of working in co-working spaces. No, I do. I absolutely love that because the hand holding is so important, especially if you are working with a small or mid-size customer, because a lot of times they don't have a huge tech team. And let's be honest, even some of the larger customers, their tech team is out there doing way too much. So the fact that you guys are providing excellent customer service is so important. And I know that we keep going back to it, but I think because, and I will just say from me being in West Texas, I hear about Starlink a lot. And some of the complaints that I get are based on like, we got Starlink and we paid this to have it installed and we can't really get a hold of anybody and we're not having issues with it. But you guys brought Starlink to the table kind of as an addition to the services that you offer for connectivity. You know, I know you kind of really chatted about how it brought stuff into your ecosystem, but you know, what benefits do you guys see with Starlink and what customers or environments are you seeing them utilize that as an additional, let's say, backup or resilient option for them?
So majority of the time we see Starlink as a primary where they can't get anything else. So that's going to be your really rural locations, your remotes in the middle of nowhere, but they have to be mounted in a position where they're going to get best sight to sky view. So the radius to sky is very important. Not a lot of trees. You're not going to want to put a Starlink in a downtown with a bunch of high-rise buildings. It's just not going to have the right connection to the satellites as they're in orbit. So if there are trees in the way, we recommend trimming those trees. And if Starlink is being brought on as a secondary, it's usually because they don't have good wireless in that area, but maybe they do have a fiber connection already built out. So they're very lucky. Oh, we have fiber, but we still need a redundant something so that when we have an outage, we have something to fall back on. And that's when like a lower usage package with Starlink makes sense. Epic is still going to bundle Starlink with a wireless router and some data in that plan. It maybe have to grab a 4G signal instead of a 5G signal, depending on the area. Or if it does get a good 5G signal, it's there as a built-in tertiary in that situation, right? That router is also there at the edge as our API into that connection, so we can properly manage and monitor that Starlink solution, see how it's performing, open trouble tickets if it's having issues. Starlink retail, if you go direct to them, you're probably going to have to wait for hardware. You're going to have to do a self-install. A lot of times they'll send you hardware and wish you the best. And the majority of the time when Starlink doesn't work well, it's usually because of a shoddy install. So we do insist on doing a professional install in those instances so that we know it's been properly installed and that the tech that's doing it has the right skill set and tool set to do it to our standards so that we know it will perform like it's supposed to. The other thing is we have tier 2 Starlink support where a lot of resellers or people who go retail don't have access to that. They may have to open a trouble ticket via email and then wait 24 to 48 hours before they even get a response. Whereas with us, you'll get immediate response from our 24/7 support team, and they will do the layer 1 and tier 1 support and troubleshooting. And then anything that they can't resolve on their own, then they will open a ticket with Starlink through our tier 2 support access with a much quicker turnaround. And then the other benefit to that too is if there is a part that has gone faulty, we have inventory in stock where we can drop ship a replacement piece or part, whereas you would have to wait for Starlink's timeline for any hardware, right? If it's even in stock and it's not on back order or in a queue. So there are benefits working with an authorized solution provider like ourselves for the Starlink solution. We are also looking at other low Earth orbit options as things are coming on the market. So stay tuned for that. We're keeping our options open as well in that space.
I love it. I love it. That really leads into what I was going to ask about next, because obviously in tech, and I like to say 6 months can be like warp speed sometimes, but we always like to look ahead on Tech and Tequila. So what are you most hyped about, excited about over the next, let's say 2 to 3 years for like 5G, I don't know, 6G, whatever they decide, 8G, 7, 9G, smart infrastructure, smart cities, or kind of like, what do you see with Epic IO going in the future?
So number one, the biggest thing is going to be POTS is going away. We've known that for 7 or 8 years. It's been an impending threat, but it's kind of being, there's a fire lit underneath it, especially now as FCC is deregulating things more and more and allowing the carriers to give a shorter notice when they are pulling that service. They're jacking up the rates so that they're forcing customers out based on spend. So we can slash their costs right there, right off the top, and bring wireless to the edge with an analog handoff for those emergency essential lines. So POTS is a big one that's going to continue to evolve and change and be pushed to an alternative solution. The other is eSIMs are hot right now. So you have your electronic SIMs where you don't actually have to swap out any cards. And we're working on that as well. That's in the foreseeable future for us. The evolution of the hardware. So previously, once upon a time, maybe we only carried Cradlepoint. And then we started our Peplink partnership. So then we had a couple of options there. Now you've got 20 to 30 routers with each vendor available as options, depending on the use case and the need of the customer and the structure of the building, et cetera. But then now we've launched our Incinco partnership this year. So there's a big push on that because their internal antenna technology and their routers is outperforming the incumbents in a very big way. I have a few that I bring as demos to events to show people. And with that new technology, we're finding less and less need for external antennas even because the router indoors is catching a better signal just because that technology has evolved. So continue to watch the hardware evolve and as well as, the evolution of wireless that I mentioned earlier, where the towers are starting to be built out more and more. I'm not sure where we're going after 5G plus. I'm sure there's probably a 6G that's in the works in someone's brain somewhere, but I haven't heard anything about that yet. Another big thing that not everybody knows about is going to be the private cellular space. So that's going to be larger use cases. But private cellular networks, previously CBRS, has only been for really maybe even like Fortune 500 companies, very large businesses that could afford rolling out this solution. It's a newer age alternative from like a DAS and it's not managed Wi-Fi. It's a truly separate network that's locked down and only devices that are capable of receiving that band 48 of signal can receive it. So that's another way that we're making the world safer, smarter, and more secure too, is providing a private network where it makes sense for these customers. And now the evolution of private cellular or CBRS is the public sector, where it's going to be the neutral host option, which will be more affordable for some of those medium-sized businesses where maybe they want to roll it out to their retail stores. And it's not just for the big warehouses and the big manufacturing facilities or entertainment venues, things like that. So we talk a lot about private cellular because we were one of the forward thinkers in the market space that saw that need coming and got ahead of it. And we have the ability to bring that to our clientele. So that gives us a leg up in that space. So keep an eye out for private cellular as it evolves. Low Earth orbit, there's going to be more options. Amazon just launched theirs this year. It was a big announcement, right? So there's a partnership going on there. We're not in that yet, but I think that's one that we're looking at. And then as the hardware and the wireless itself evolves, just keep an eye out. It's ever changing and it's getting better and better.
No, I absolutely love that because I think that, you've already mentioned several things that are very future thinking, very forward thinking for businesses that will be excellent solutions, like absolutely excellent solutions. So first off, Darcy, I want to say thank you so much for joining us today, for sharing everything Epic has to offer. I know I've known you quite a while, and obviously I think you're amazing. But let's say that we are going to finish this up, land this plane. So what I would be like 3 things that if our listener is thinking like Epic IO is the way I want to go, what would be 3 things that you're like, these are definite yeses across the board?
Well, wireless connectivity, Starlink and POTS. That's really where my head goes immediately. If they have physical camera feeds that they need, that they want to get more proactive with, or need to bring up to the 21st century, right? That's going to be in our wheelhouse as well. But I will say the smaller customers where maybe they only have 1 or 2 or a handful of cameras, we're not going to be the cheapest option because we are a higher grade of service. So we tend to price ourselves out of those deals, but mainly because the cheapest isn't always better, right? You kind of get what you pay for, which is it's kind of my mantra all the time, is you get what you pay for. So if they are willing to look at it and really invest the money in their safety and their security, then we're definitely going to be a top runner in the AIoT space. But for all day, every day, it's going to be that wireless connection and POTS replacement and Starlink.
Nope. I love it because you really like hit the nail on the head with that, that if you want connectivity that doesn't break when the world gets shaky, you can think of Epic IO. And of course, kind of like you said, you've got some great AI offerings that work with you, not around you. And of course, you talked about having like a dashboard and pulling data and several things that I think will be very interesting for clients that are like, I hate having 18 different bills for all these things that, having, I don't want to say one unified billing being the only thing, but having the ability to like share data and look at it, as well as if, A goes down, you've always got B as an option. So, I think that really I think we've summed up everything for Epic IO and kind of what it's doing now and what you guys are looking at in the future. So once again, thank you so much for being on Tech and Tequila, or as for today, Tech and Tasting, since we're talking about being sober curious. So, all right, familia, I want to thank you so much. So if today's conversation sparked curiosity or inspiration, or you hear that little inner voice saying, my business really needs this level of tech. So here's what you can do. Obviously, go on LinkedIn, look up Miss Darcy Guidry today and Epic IO. I'm sure that that's a great way to connect with Miss Darcy. Also, I would be remiss if I didn't tell you, you can always look up Shelby Technology Solutions. We do technology reviews every day, all day, and we love working with all size customers. And of course, I would be remiss, since this was Tech and Tastings, don't forget your holiday sip. So while some of us will be enjoying tequila, if you have decided that that is not the way you want to go, you want to be sober or sober curious, the Can You Forex Holiday Pack is a great way to start up. And of course, if you choose that, take a picture, put it on all our socials, and share it with us. If you enjoyed this episode, or you just really liked learning about Epic IO and you look to learning more about different solutions, share this with an amiga, a colleague, somebody on your team. Tag us when you listen. We love getting tags. And of course, don't forget, follow, rate, and review Tech and Tequila. As always, we bring you tech with corazon. So tech is better with community and tequila, or Can You Forex, a little sober curious today. And it's always better with good conversation. So thank you, Darcy, so much. I appreciate you for joining us today.
Thank you, Kat.
Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode of Tech and Tequila. I hope you enjoyed our conversation today. To stay updated about all things tech and more, don't forget to visit us at our website, shelbyts.com. If you loved what you heard, remember to show your support by liking, sharing, and subscribing to our podcast. Your 5-star ratings and reviews mean the world to us and help us to reach more listeners just like you. So muchas gracias again for joining us with Tech and Tequila. Thank you so much. You learned a lot about tech, and maybe you had a nice drink of tequila.